I'm on my way to an event that the Black Home... Why am I look tired? Sad, this is sad. That the Black Homebirth Matters ATX group is putting on. They're the ones responsible for funding black and brown women who want to have home birth but can't necessarily afford it. And they're completely funded by donations and stuff like that. So they're having a screening for the film Aftershock, which I was trying to avoid. It came out when I was pregnant, and at that time I was very mindful of what I ingested with the volume, so I didn't watch it. So now that's what they're going to be watching tonight, and then I'm on the panel of women who will be giving just a little speech on their home birth experience. I'm really glad to be a part of this. I don't know if I'm mentally prepared for the film, because I don't know how much preparation you can do to make this any easier to swallow or to watch or digest, but it's important because it happens quite frequently, and it is happening more often these days, and it's a conversation that needs to take place every day, because it's a constant reminder, because again it's happening all the time, so it needs to be constantly in our face, which is one of the reasons why I appreciate the number of black doulas and midwives that are emerging, because representation matters. And I tell people all the time, women especially, since I gave birth and had 2 home births, even if you're not having a home birth, you should still hire a midwife or a doula to advocate for you if you're having a hospital birth, because in the moment you might not be able to just speak how you feel or stand up for yourself, or your spouse might not be able to do it either, and they might not even know the questions to ask, but the midwives and doulas, they sure do know what to do. So it's just important. So it's about an hour away from the house. I'm going downtown. Lord child, down south always have traffic. It don't matter what day, what time of day, and I've been working from home for the last 2 years, so I've not really been driving. So I've not been experiencing traffic, so I know I'm going to be aggravated. So I'm going to have to constantly remind myself why I'm coming out of the house and that it's an important cause. Yeah, I'll try to get some footage from the event. But I just know this film is just going to make me feel some kind of way. But again, it's important, and I'm just so happy that they asked me to be a part of it, because these women are absolutely amazing, and my entire team is going to be there. My entire birth team, my 2 doulas, my 2 midwives, and my doulas. And my doula decided to become a midwife after my birth with Naomi, which is even more amazing. So yes, I will check back in when I get there.
But this is the first of hopefully many. So thank you for coming out and showing support for this film and for this nonprofit. In 2020, I guess it was, a few months into COVID, and I've been thinking about starting a birth fund. I'm a midwife, or I was a midwife in the community, I reached out to state. But I'm thinking about starting a birth fund to help offset the costs associated with home birth, if that was a barrier for some women in the community. And so Lena foolishly agreed to be my and here we are 2.5 years later. And so we just feel really strongly that, whenever possible, that hope is the best and safest option for birth. Obviously, we all know there are exceptions to that, but we feel very strongly about birth. So wanting to remove that barrier if that was a factor for access. So
Alicia Reed. I also go by Day. I am a holistic postpartum doula. I also am the director of programs for Mama Sana Vibrant Women. I've had 2 home births. I had my first child in 2020 at home in Austin, and then my second child in 22 at home in Maynard, and Ulrika was my midwife, and I was also a recipient of a scholarship from the Black Midwives Fund.
Hi everybody, my name is LaKay. I'm a mother of 2. My first baby was intended to be born in a birth center. After 76 hours of labor, I was transferred to the hospital due to complications, which I'm happy to discuss here. After that experience, I decided that for my second baby, first baby was born in 2020. After that experience, I decided that for my second baby, I wanted to have a home birth, which I successfully did under Lori Frimpkin and Scout here at the end of the table. I had an amazing experience, and I'm also happy to talk about that as well today if you have any questions. And I also was a recipient of Black Home Birth Matters Scholarship as well for my home birth.
Hi. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. My name is Roxanne. I have 2 beautiful baby girls who were both delivered by Lena, and the second birth will be assisted. I'm also a recipient of the Black Home Birth Matters Fund twice, so I'm very grateful. I'm Jamaican. Accent is thick as hell, I'm sorry. And when I moved here, the America that was sold to me on TV is not the America that I moved into. So as the more I dug deep into birthing, is the more I realized that hospital birth was just not for me. Because I'm like, I can't go like that, literally. I can't move from a third world country, come to America, big old America, and die during childbirth. It was just stupid. So I decided to do it at home both times. And I can discuss afterwards as well, because I did encounter some complications. But thank God for the relationship between Lena and I. She pretty much saved my life, because I did develop postpartum preeclampsia, which I didn't even realize was happening.
Hi y'all, I'm Scout. I am a senior student community midwife here in Austin. I've been a doula here in Austin for almost 10 years. And I do a lot of home birth at this point in my career. Personally, I'm in this work like generationally. My great-grandmother Texas had 15 children and also helped everybody in her town have all of their children. My grandmother Johnny May was a community midwife in her community, and my mother Alma was an L&D nurse in the system, which obviously led me to go the complete opposite direction. So I feel like, although I don't have any children yet, which a lot of my feelings on that are reflected in this movie and in this documentary, I have experience through those avenues. So thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, with the time in mind, just wanted to share what you feel like you wanted to share.
As I grew older and started to become more passionate about holistic medicine and reclaiming my ancestral wisdom and learning more about birth work, I decided to go on the path of becoming a doula before I ever had children. So I kind of already knew that whenever I did make the choice to have children, that I wanted to have a home birth. And so I think it granted me like a sense of privilege, because when I was still talking among my community and I would say like, I want to have a home birth, or you should consider a doula, a lot of my friends and family members would look at me like I was crazy. Like you're a crazy hippie woman, like that is dangerous, and had a lot of concern for me whenever I did decide to have children and to have a home birth. So when I got pregnant in 2019, I was living abroad in Thailand with my husband. We were serving as Peace Corps volunteers, and it was interesting because the federal government categorized it as an injury. And so they said I had been injured in the Peace Corps, and so they gave me money to pay for my birth when I returned to the States, and that's how I was able to pay for a midwife when we came back in 2020, because I wasn't able to afford it out of pocket. And then just that first time around, the experience of a midwife taking time with me, not feeling rushed, feeling heard. I remember when I had first the first time I met with my midwife, who was Melik at the time, who was I think one of the first Black midwives in Austin. She took my blood pressure and she was like, it's a little high, but I'm gonna take it again because you don't know me and you're probably nervous. And so she waited about 30 minutes and she took my blood pressure again and she was like, okay, we're there, you're good. And that was the first time in a setting with a medical provider where I didn't feel overwhelmed or like someone was projecting like a diagnosis on me. And so that led to, and when I reflect on previous experiences, and I know I'm talking a lot, so I'm trying to hurry up, and going to doctors about concerns, right, and feeling dismissed and not heard as a black woman outside of ever being pregnant, I had already noticed a difference in a shift of like, this is someone where I feel heard, they're taking their time with me, they're getting to know me, they did not weigh me, which I was shocked. I'm like, you're not gonna weigh me? And then she's like, no, that's racist. Like, I have no reason to weigh you. Like, there's no problems here. So like someone that's not trying to overly diagnose me, I felt safe, I felt heard, and even though having a baby I think is really hard, no matter how you swing it, the situation was such a positive experience that when I got pregnant again, I was like, I absolutely want to have another home birth. But I felt like, again, I was in a situation where I was equipped with the knowledge and the resources because I already was a midwife and I had already had a home birth, that I knew exactly what I wanted for the second time around, so that I felt really empowered and I knew that I was healthy and my body was designed to give birth to my baby my way. So I was really grateful to have the experience of being able to have autonomy, but with that said, I had so much proximity to other women in my community, coming from a low-income Black community, who did not have that same experience.
I'd like to start with something that this is my first time seeing this film, and watching this film hit me because I easily could have been one of those women with the experience that I had with my first baby. As I mentioned, my birth plan was to have my first baby in a birthing center. There was no one there at the birthing center that looked like me. I'm not going to name the birthing center. It's here in Austin, Texas. I have had conversations with people about the place after the fact and got more information. I wish I'd done more research. I didn't. There was no one there that looked like me. I think that was a big factor. The lack of intimacy between just the care of like, okay, there's 5 different midwives here. I don't know who's going to be catching my baby. I'm meeting each person 2 or 3 times. There was one midwife in particular that I absolutely didn't want to catch my baby, and she was the one that I ended up getting the 3rd day that I went back into the birthing center. By the time 76 hours had hit, I was severely dehydrated. I was neglected by the midwife. I remember looking at her in the back office. She was like laughing, sitting in front of her computer. There was a student midwife there who I don't know how far along she was in her training, and I don't need to shit on this organization. I just want to keep it real with my experience. While you're actually birthing, you don't have time to really process things, and you don't have time to go picking at people and telling people like, hey, do your job. I paid the money. I'm here. Give me what I paid for. This student midwife had diagnosed me. She told me that I was 9 centimeters dilated. By the time I got transferred to the hospital, they transferred the paperwork over. The paperwork said that I was 6 centimeters dilated. So there was just a very obvious neglect there. I don't want to say that it was because I'm Black, but I really feel that if I was white, I would not have had that experience, and my baby would have gotten here safely within maybe even the first 24 hours of my birth. With this midwife, she held me down when I specifically asked her not to do a stretch during a contraction. I told her I don't want to do it on this contraction, I want to wait until the next one. She just completely fucking ignored me. By the time I got to the hospital, I'm talking to the people at the hospital, got my baby here safely. They did what they did their job. I appreciate them in so many ways, but I remember being at the hospital and telling them, I don't want to have my baby on this table. And they literally laughed at me. It was the weirdest fucking thing. It's like, I don't know why you're laughing. I don't understand what's funny. Nobody's really talking about anything that's happening. I remember I did have a vaginal birth. I didn't have to do a C-section. My body was more than capable of doing its job. But after I had my baby, my physician didn't tell me, hey, we're gonna stitch you up. He just went on in there and started poking and prodding around and shit. I'm like, dude, you gotta tell somebody if you're gonna be like, it's just, there were too many things about my initial birthing experience that was like, I appreciate the hospital and what they did, but this is not for me. My second baby, I already knew I'm capable of pushing a baby out. My body can do it. I did it one time before. My partner saw me. I had two partners, and my mother-in-law was there during my first birth. They saw me. They were with me pretty much the whole time. They knew I was capable of delivering a baby, but because of that first experience, there was a lot of doubt that I was receiving from them about moving forward with a home birth for my second baby. I really wanted this home birth. I knew in my heart, I was like, I don't want to do anything else. I thought that I was going to have my baby in a hospital. I thought that that was what I was going to have to do because I didn't have the financial stability to have a home birth. Especially by the time I opted in, then I was being told like, okay, well in like 4 months you're going to need to drop $5,500. I'm like, I don't have it like that. I just don't. Fortunately, Black Home Birth Matters came into my life via Scout. We met through a completely different means, but I met Scout, I met Lori, I found out about this organization, and all of the hope that I thought that I was never going to get suddenly arrived in my life. I got the full scholarship. I was able to have conversations with my midwife about, hey, I cannot swing all of this money in this, like all of this amount of time. It's an extra added stress. She told me, hey, you don't need to be stressed about having a baby. If you want me to be your midwife, I will be your midwife, and we will figure it out. We will figure it out. We will do it. We will get this baby here safely, and that's exactly what happened. I had my daughter September 28th, 2022, in my bathtub. I literally created a sauna in my bathroom. I had hot water going. I had the bathtub going. I had the stand-up shower going. It was like 85 degrees. Was it like 85 degrees or there? It was insane. It was insane. But in this, I just mean to say that I listened to what I knew I needed, and I followed that. I made sure that I had all of the support. I mean, my prenatals were literally just hanging out. It was just like it was just the best experience. It was a complete 180 from my first experience, and I want all of you to know, like, we can do it. We can do it. We can do it. And when you have the right support, when you have the resources behind you, like, you can do it. So, I did it. I did it.
Previously, I'm Jamaican, which is considered a third world country, and I've never heard any story like this. And again, you move to America with this idea that is, you know, the white picket fence because the families, neighbors are like, hey, and everybody's super friendly and whatever. And then reality hits, right? No, I was told I couldn't give birth or it was going to be very difficult. So I wasn't necessarily paying attention to these things, but somehow I think my mind was attracting these things on social media, and all the stories kept popping up. So I was like, okay, what's happening? So when I found out I was pregnant, I have a client named Dominic who recommended some midwives, and I'm like, it's the only option. So when I went, sorry, okay, so I was given a couple of options, and one was obviously Black, which is Aisha, I think her name was, and she was moving out of town, right? I was like, God damn, the only Black midwife. And I'm like, I'd be damned, sorry white people, if I let a white woman deliver my baby. Because I was of the belief that only somebody who looks like me can understand my struggle, understand my plight. And then I'm an immigrant, and an immigrant with a thick accent, and I just couldn't deal. And as Jamaicans, when it comes to certain things, we're not as patient. Because I'm a cuss you with my big belly, and it's just going to be a complete disaster. So I went through the list, and I saw Ulrike. I was like, absolutely not, she's not Black. Sorry, Ulrike, I love you dearly. I was like, no ma'am. Then I went down the list, and Lena, after everybody was left, she was the darkest skin. And I'm like, well, she's an immigrant. I'm like, she's an immigrant, and her skin is the darkest, so I care. So when we had the meeting, I told her, I said, it's important to me because I don't want to be treated poorly. Because I already had a chip on my shoulder. Again, I'm Black, female, immigrant, and I just couldn't bother. And she was like, I can give you more options because I understand. So by the time we got done talking, I was like, okay, I guess. you're okay. So I went with her, and she turned out to be the most amazing mini human I've ever met, right? Mini human. So she delivered both my babies Ulrike, happened to be at the second birth, which is a blessing. And I'm so sorry I passed you Ulrike, that was just ignorant. But I just wanted to make sure the experience was what I envisioned. Because again, after hearing all the stories, I'm like, I can't go out like that. And it's just very sad because, as I say, I'm from a country where you would expect these experiences to be the majority, but it's not. And then, again, because I'm an entrepreneur, paying for medical stuff would have been a little bit difficult. So again, somebody recommended the Black Birthing Fund, and I was awarded partial aid twice, which I was very grateful for. It went a long way. Even if it was $500, it's $500 less that I had to pay, right? But afterwards, with my second baby, as I said, I developed postpartum preeclampsia. And the headaches are normal because I usually have migraines. And I'm like, there's absolutely no way something is wrong with me. But just let me tell Lena, because we have developed a relationship. And she's like, absolutely not. Please go here right now. So she sent me to another midwife that was close to where I was. And that midwife told her, hey, no. So I went immediately. And they said I had stroke levels, blood pressure, readings. And I was like, if I'd stay home maybe 20, 30 more minutes, I don't know what would have happened. So if Lena wasn't adamant, because she kept calling, I kept texting, and she was like, please go. This is serious. And I was like, kind of a thing, So I'm very grateful, and I'm grateful for the platform that they've created, because we do need more women of color in this industry, because representation matters. Even when I have to go to the hospital here, if I see a black person and they walk in my room, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be heard. Which is kind of shitty. It shouldn't be, because people should just show up and do their jobs, but that's just not our reality. So I'm just very, very grateful, and even though it won't happen again, because I'm done, every chance I get, I recommend having a midwife or doula, and I've had 3 persons so far that have gone that route. Even one of my clients used Lena recently, and I tell women, even if you're having a hospital birth, hire a midwife or a doula to advocate for you, because in the moment you might feel like I'm strong and I know the questions and blah blah blah, but with so much happening, ish can just go haywire. So I tell them, hire a midwife or a doula to advocate for you, because it's important, because we have to put a stop to it, because it's getting ridiculous at this point. So thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
Black Home Birth Matters is hugely responsible for me still being a student midwife, because being a student midwife is very hard. You don't make any money, you're working full time, and you go to a lot of births and you're constantly on call and you don't earn anything. So to be able to do that for years at a time, Black Home Birth Matters also has provided me and just helped me be able to buy groceries. There's times when I'm like, I don't even know how I'm gonna pay my electric bill, but I guess we're going to another birth. That is how I've been living the last couple of years. And I would not still be able to be a student and be working towards my license as quickly as I am without this organization and without aid from them. I found my way here just from even being a doula and going to births everywhere, the birth center, hospital births, and honestly getting to hit my limit. I just hit my limit of seeing how different people are treated and how my job would change when going to these institutions with different people. I have had patients cried out of my fingertips. I've seen people yell at their care providers and their care providers yell back. I have seen horror stories specifically here in Austin at hospitals, and I had hit my limit of just leaving the hospital and crying in my car for an hour about people's experiences that they're having, and knowing that it's not my part to absorb that experience for them, but it was affecting me very deeply and still does. And then even moving on and wanting to doula more in the birth center, and I worked in one of the birth centers here for a while, for a couple of years, and hearing their classes and sitting in on their classes, and there was one particular day where they taught something and they were like, yes, mothers of color have just higher percentages of all of these things, and I was like, I had to always be that person that was like, that is not true, that is racist. It is that they don't just have higher probabilities of having worse diets, it's poverty, it's racism. This is not just they're more unhealthy, they're more obese, they're more any of these things. It is poverty and racism, and having to correct those things consistently in that space. And then moving into the home birth space, where honestly, I just believe that birth is a ceremony, and I feel like it is a rite of passage when you are pregnant to be able to have your empowering moments of scooping your baby up into your arms, of having patience, of having the time to wait, of having the time to build the longing that labor requires. And this is all part of our bond with our children. This is all part of our ancestral knowledge. This is all a part of how we promote pleasure even in our society. We have more oxytocin receptors when we have babies, and a lot of that is getting taken, and I want people to reclaim that. So I know that I am not home birth no matter what. I am home birth if it is safe, but I am very much in promotion and in my personal space right now of letting people stay in their safe space and seeing the amazing things that can happen when women feel safe and supported and empowered, because it's truly incredible, and I'm honored that I get to witness that regularly.
We have a couple minutes for you guys if you have questions in the audience, but several of you have already kind of touched on experiences with providers who don't look like you. The film talks about the history a little bit of midwifery and obstetric care in the U.S. and how now we have 87% of our midwives in the U.S. are now white. If anyone wants to speak more to, like we hear that, and sometimes it's hard for some of us to understand maybe why does it make a difference? If I'm providing good care and I'm caring about you, why does it matter? So if anyone wants to speak maybe to what, you know what I'm saying, like a little bit more about why is it important to have, I mean, we live in a city like Austin where we have hardly any midwives of color, right? Like, why is that important to have more providers of color? Or not even of color, but Black midwives.
There is a great value when in intimate moments with a person, or just in general when you're looking to connect with a person, which childbirth is a very intimate moment. It's very important to not feel obligated that I have to start from point zero explaining certain things to you. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we are looking to build a certain space, we are looking to build a certain intimacy, and I can't go down the whole list of things that you need to know about what it is to look like me, be like me in society, so for you to understand and be able to empathize. You know, because you can do the best that you can, but the fact of the matter is that so much work has to go into, because you're just never gonna know. You're just never gonna know. You're never gonna live like me. So that was something that I found was very important, and having Scout on my birthing team was like transcendental, because it was like, oh my God, I don't have to like explain these little like nuances that were completely overlooked in my first birthing experience. Completely, honestly, my two partners were Hispanic, and the majority of actually all the midwives there were white. The exceptions, there was a French woman and then there was a German woman, but everybody was like white identifying. And it's like just culturally, like I could feel it in the room. And there was just this like complete lack of like understanding, and it just made things very uncomfortable. And it's like, how can I allow my body to open up and do this very pivotal, transcendental thing when like I'm not even comfortable in space with you? And when I am in space with people that do look like me in these intimate moments, I'm able to be fully present. My body's able to do the work, and that's why it's important to me. To answer your question, yeah.
Where most people look like I do. Yes, we have Jamaicans that look like you, whatever. So when I'm in that space, I want to feel like home. And another woman that looks like me feel like home. So it means she's going to get me. And even in my moments of frustration, she's still going to get me. And she's going to see me, and she's going to hear me, and she's not going to try to interpret what I said some other way to make it something else. I was just not having it. And I don't think I'm racist or anything. I just think in that moment, I just don't want to deal with somebody who doesn't look like me and just might not get me. You know, so I just didn't want to be frustrated. I just didn't want to be bothered. And then again, I hear all these stories, and I'm like, for me to deal with this situation in this moment that is supposed to be so precious. And then again, because I was told I couldn't, or it might be difficult, I'm like, this is something I want to hold on to, you know? and I want to give my kids the best possible experience from the get-go. And I just didn't think somebody who didn't look like me would get that.
That's what I'll say. There's less hurdles. It doesn't mean that just because someone's black, they're going to understand me fully immediately once they meet me, but there are less cultural hurdles that I have to jump over. Even when it comes to like education, I think that that's one of the biggest things I see in Austin is how different people's birth classes are and the things that people recommend. And I'm just like, okay, someone who is making $45,000 a year and has 2 jobs can't follow half of those recommendations, but that's great. You know what I mean? Like, they're not buying any of that stuff. You know what I mean? It's just the difference of even when you're not talking in the different classes, in the class systems, there's just less cultural barriers, I think. And yeah, when you're already trying to just cut it down in those intimate spaces, I think it's very helpful. Yeah.
So I just want to talk about this while it's fresh. Because I think I'm just going to go on the continue ball and then drop asleep. I don't know what I was expecting when I came here to watch the film, but it was a lot. It heavy, and to think that so many lives were lost simply because, you know, women look like what they look like, which is they look like me. To go into the hospital for a very routine thing, which is giving birth, you know, and then for you to be told your partner didn't make it, no real reason, or for you to develop complications or certain symptoms after the fact and they just dismiss it. It's okay, it's a postpartum thing, just go and get some rest type of thing, which is what happened with a lot of the women in this film. You know, you never know who you may influence, and so far I've influenced 3 or 4 women to have home births or hire a midwife or a doula. And I tell people home birth is not for everyone because some people don't have the space and some people prefer to do it outside of their home for whatever reason. So if you're going to use a birthing center or a hospital, I say still hire a midwife or a doula to advocate for you, because some stuff just happen in hospitals where it just don't make no sense. And I think, you know, when whomever decided that hospitals is now the thing and dismissed black midwives, because as it relates to birth, hospitals is a new phenomenon, right? Because our great and all of them, they were born at home and nothing happened and there were no complications. All these things didn't start happening until we started having birth in hospitals. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with the hospital, you know. It's an option and it's a very good option, but I personally think hospital is for sick people, for patients. And as a pregnant woman, you're not sick, you're just doing what your body is naturally designed to do, unless you have complications. Of course, that's separate. But now these kids are without a mom. They will never remember them. They'll hear stories from the fathers and family members, but they won't have a clue, you know. All they'll be told is that your mom was excited to meet you and she loved you dearly. And that's kind of rough, because, you know, it put things into perspective and it makes me realize how blessed I am and was to be able to have this experience. And because I decided I wanted to dictate just the flow of their life and whatever from inception. So they came at their own time. It was a very relaxed environment. It wasn't forced. I worked at what they were doing and when they were ready and what they told me to do. I have more faith in midwives than I have faith in the fact that the system will change to accommodate us, kind of a thing. And that's kind of sucky, you know. So I feel like even though both my babies are asleep now, I'm gonna go home and I might wake them up, but you know, I'll deal with it and just kiss them and hug them a little bit tighter, them sleep, you know, because they're here, they made it, they're safe, I am safe. And to think that maybe if I didn't have my midwife and the relationship that we have, still do, is after I developed postpartum preeclampsia, if it wasn't for the relationship between my midwife and I, who knows, I might not have been here, because, you know, I had they said stroke level blood pressure. And I was a little bit nonchalant with it in the beginning, and she was adamant. She called my sister, she spoke to my husband, and she's like, make sure she goes to the hospital. This is not a joke thing, blah, blah, blah. And when I got to the hospital, they were ready and waiting for me. She had called it in and everything, and I just don't know. It just sucks that in 2023, we live in a space or an environment where the color of your skin or what you look like dictate the level or the quality of care that you receive in such a vulnerable and just intimate time, you know. It's rough.